The scratches were the first thing I noticed, not the smell, which hit me about 10 seconds later, not the way the emergency lights flickered when I stepped into the shaft, not even the cold. And trust me, Chicago basements in February are cold. But this was different. This was wrong. No. It was the scratches on the inside of the car. I've been an elevator mechanic for 11 years now. Started as an apprentice right out of trade school, worked my way up. I've seen a lot of things in elevator shafts that most people would rather not think about. Dead pigeons, rats the size of small dogs, once found a guy's prosthetic leg that had fallen through the gap, still haven't figured that one out. But I've never seen scratches like these. They were on the inside of the car, the side panels, right below the button console, deep gouges in the brushed steel, like something with claws had been trying to get out, or get at something. The building was an old hotel on the south side, been abandoned for about 8 years, but some developer had bought it, wanted to turn it into luxury condos. My company got the contract to inspect and repair the elevators, 2 of them, both original to the building, probably installed in the 40s. I was alone. My partner Deshaun was supposed to be with me, but his kid had gotten sick at school. I told him to go. The inspection was routine. Just document the condition, take some photos, write up what needs to be replaced. I'd done it 100 times before. The basement was darker than it should have been. I had my headlamp, my flashlight, but the darkness down there seemed to absorb the light. That's the only way I can describe it, like the beam only went so far before the dark pushed back. I found the first elevator at the bottom of shaft A. It had fallen. Not recently. The cables were rusted, snapped clean through years ago. The car was crumpled at the bottom like an accordion. Standard stuff for a building this old, this neglected. But the scratches. I climbed down into the pit, which is the space below where the car sits at the lowest floor. In a working elevator, you've got about 4 feet of clearance. In this one, with the car crushed, I had maybe 2. That's when I noticed them. The scratches weren't just on the car, they were on the walls of the shaft too. The concrete walls, about 5 feet up, like something had been dragged down into the pit, clawing at the walls the whole way. I told myself it was an animal, a raccoon maybe. They get into everything in these old buildings. A raccoon could make scratches like that if it was scared enough. But raccoons don't have fingernails. I took photos. That's what you do. Document everything. My phone light illuminated the gouges in stark white flash, and that's when I saw something else. There was writing on the wall. Not graffiti, not spray paint. This was scratched into the concrete, just like the claw marks. Same depth, same desperate angle. It said, "He collects us." I stood there for a long time, reading those 3 words over and over. My breath fogged in the cold. My headlamp flickered once. Bad batteries, I told myself. And in that split second of darkness, I heard something. A voice, faint, coming from somewhere below me. That's impossible, of course. I was already at the bottom. There was nothing below me except foundation and dirt and whatever else they built this place on top of. But I heard it. Please. Just that one word. A woman's voice. Quiet. Almost like a whisper from inside a closed room. I got out of that pit faster than I've ever moved in my life. I should have left, I know that now, but I had a job to do and I'm not the kind of person who runs from shadows. That's what I told myself anyway. The second elevator was in shaft B on the other side of the basement. This one was still in position at the ground floor. The cables looked intact from below. Unusual, but not impossible. Sometimes buildings get lucky. I climbed up through the pit to the underside of the car. In working elevators, there's an access hatch you can use to enter the car from below. Emergency maintenance, I've done it dozens of times. This hatch was rusted shut. I pried it open with my multi-tool. Took about 5 minutes. The whole time I kept hearing things, whispers that might have been wind, scratching that might have been rats, might have been. The hatch finally gave with a shriek of metal, and I pulled myself up into the car. The car was full of handprints. Not dust, not dirt, handprints in something dark and old. They covered every surface, the walls, the ceiling, the doors, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, overlapping, layered, like generations of people had been pressing their hands against every inch of that space. And in the center of the car, on the floor, someone had arranged bones. I'm not an expert. I'm an elevator mechanic. But I know what a human jaw looks like. I know what finger bones look like. They were arranged in a spiral pattern, starting from the center of the floor and working outward, like a snail shell or a drain. The smell hit me then, that copper and rot smell I'd noticed earlier but ignored. It was coming from the walls, from the handprints. I looked closer at one of them, leaned in with my flashlight. The handprint moved. I swear to God, it moved. The fingers curled inward slightly, like it was trying to grab something. I fell backward, hit the wall, and that's when all of them started moving. Hundreds of handprints, all curling their fingers at once, all reaching toward me, and the whispers started. He collects us. He collects us. He collects us, over and over. Different voices, men, women, children, all speaking at once, all saying the same thing. I ran, dropped my toolkit, left my flashlight, didn't care. I ran for the hatch, dropped through it, hit the pit floor hard enough to twist my ankle, and kept going. Crawled up the ladder, through the basement, up the stairs. Didn't stop until I was outside, gasping in the February air, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone. I called my supervisor, told him there was a structural issue with the shaft, told him I needed backup before I could continue the inspection. I didn't tell him about the handprints. I didn't tell him about the bones. Who would believe me? Deshaun came out the next day. His kid was feeling better. We went down together with better lights and a full team. The scratches were still there. The writing on the wall was still there. He collects us. But the bones were gone. The handprints were gone. The elevator car in shaft B looked like any other abandoned elevator. Dusty, rusted, forgotten. No arrangement of human remains, no bloody handprints on every surface. My coworkers looked at me like I was losing it. Deshaun pulled me aside, asked if everything was okay at home, asked if I'd been sleeping. I showed them the photos on my phone, the photos of the shaft, the photos of the scratches, the photos of nothing. Just an empty elevator car, no bones, no handprints. My phone had recorded what was there now, not what had been there when I took the pictures. I finished the inspection, wrote it up, recommended total replacement of both systems. The developer agreed, cheaper than trying to repair equipment from the 1940s. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I did some research. The hotel had been called the Parkview. It operated from 1942 to 1987. During that time, 7 people died in the building. Car accidents, they called them back then. Elevator malfunctions. But when I dug deeper, old newspaper archives, police reports that had been digitized, I found something else. The bodies were never found. In each of the 7 deaths, witnesses reported that someone had entered the elevator, the car had moved, and when the doors opened again, the car was empty. No body, no blood, no evidence that anyone had ever been inside. Just scratches on the walls. I went back one more time. I know. Believe me. I know how stupid that sounds. But I had to understand. I had to know if what I'd seen was real, or if I was losing my mind. It was late. After midnight, I used my company key card to get through the construction fence, my master key to get into the basement. Shaft B was exactly as we'd left it, empty, dusty, normal. But I heard the whispers again, faint, far away, like voices trapped behind a wall. He collects us. I asked out loud, feeling insane but needing to know who collects you. The whispers stopped, and then a voice. One voice, clear and close, right next to my ear. The one who waits at the bottom? I didn't run this time. I couldn't. My body had locked up. Fight or flight, they call it, but there's a third option nobody talks about. Freeze. Something touched my shoulder. Cold, so cold, like a hand made of winter air. He's been here since they built the shaft. Another touch on my back. He waits for people who travel alone, on my arm. He collects us. I could see them now. In my peripheral vision, shadows that weren't quite shadows, shapes that might have been people if people could exist without substance. They were everywhere, dozens of them, standing in the pit, hanging from the cables, pressed against the walls, all of them looking down, down into the shaft, down to where something waited in a darkness so complete that my light couldn't touch it. I left Chicago, quit my job, moved downstate, told everyone it was burnout. 11 years of crawling around in shafts and pits, it takes a toll. The developer finished his condos. I looked them up online last month. Beautiful units, luxury finishes, both elevators fully modernized with the latest safety features. They've had 6 residents move out in the first 3 months. The reviews on Zillow mention cold spots, strange sounds at night, the feeling of being watched when you step into the elevator. One review mentioned scratches on the inside of the car. I told my brother about it once. He's a therapist. Figured maybe he'd have some insight, or at least wouldn't think I was completely crazy. He listened to the whole thing. Didn't interrupt. Didn't give me that look people give when they think you've lost it. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that's haunted me ever since. There's a phenomenon in psychology called place memory. It's the theory that traumatic events can somehow imprint on physical spaces, that buildings can hold onto things. You're saying the hotel remembered? I'm saying that 7 people disappeared in that building. 7 people who experienced terror and confusion in their final moments. And you walked into that space alone, in the dark, and opened yourself up to whatever was left of them. So I imagined it? No. He leaned forward. I'm saying you saw something real, just not real in the way we usually mean. I've thought about that a lot. If places can remember, if walls can hold on to the echo of what happened there, what happens in a place where something has been collecting those echoes for 80 years? What happens when the collector has so many echoes that it becomes something else, something that can reach out and touch you? I went back to the archives one more time, dug deeper into the history of that block, that piece of Chicago real estate. The Parkview Hotel was built in 1942. But something was there before. An apartment building constructed in 1898, burned down in 1940. 12 people died in the fire. Before that, a boarding house. Demolished in 1896 after a structural failure, killed 8. Before that, the records get spotty. But there are references to incidents going back to the 1870s. A mine shaft that collapsed, a well where children drowned, a root cellar where a family starved during a harsh winter. The same piece of ground, the same darkness below. Like something has been there all along, and we just keep building new ways for it to reach us. The developer who bought the Parkview made me sign an NDA as part of my severance. He didn't want rumors getting out about what I'd claimed to see. But he also hired a priest to bless the building before anyone moved in. And when that didn't work, he hired a different kind of specialist. Someone who deals with places like this. I don't know what they did. Some kind of ritual, sealing something away. The complaints have dropped off. The reviews are mostly positive now. But I looked at the building's security footage. The developer owes me a favor, and he owed me more than he wanted to admit. Late at night when the building's asleep, the elevator moves on its own. Just once or twice a week. Always to the basement. The doors open. Stay open for exactly 30 seconds. Then they close and the car returns to the lobby. I watched 3 months of footage. The basement is always empty when those doors open. But something steps on when they close. You can see the weight shift, the subtle dip of the car, the shadow that's there and then isn't, and the scratches. There are new scratches on the inside of the car. Every time maintenance buffs them out, they come back. Here's what I think. Whatever is in that shaft, whatever has been collecting people since before Chicago was Chicago, it never stopped. The sealing, the blessing, the ritual, it just made it more patient. It's still down there, still waiting at the bottom of the dark. And every time those doors open, it sends something up to watch, to observe, to choose. I dream about it sometimes. I'm standing at the edge of the pit looking down. The darkness is absolute, deeper than any basement should be. And there are hands reaching up from it, hundreds of hands. In the dream, I always know whose hands they are. The woman from 1954 who just wanted to visit her sister on the fourth floor. The maintenance man from 1967 who went down to check a noise. The couple from 1979 who took the elevator because she couldn't climb stairs in her condition. All of them reaching up, all of them trying to warn me. But in the dream, I can't move. I can only watch as one more hand rises from the darkness, my hand, reaching up to join the others, to become part of the collection. I wake up before I see what's at the bottom. I think that's a mercy. I think some things we're not meant to see. Some things exist in the darkness because the darkness is the only place that can hold them. The lesson, the real lesson, isn't just don't work alone. It's this: pay attention to the places that feel wrong. Trust your instincts when a building makes your skin crawl. Because that feeling, that primitive warning in the back of your brain, it's there for a reason. We evolved alongside things like this. Things that wait. Things that collect. And the only reason we're still here is because our ancestors were smart enough to listen when the darkness whispered back. I'm an elevator mechanic in Springfield now. Small buildings, new construction, nothing older than 2010. I still check the shafts before I go down. I still look at the walls for scratches. I still listen for whispers. Because I know now that some buildings are hungry. And some shafts go deeper than they should. I don't believe in ghosts. Let me be very clear about that up front, because what I'm about to tell you sounds like a ghost story, and I need you to understand that I've built my entire career on rationality, on evidence, on the simple clinical reality of what people leave behind when they die. I've cleaned up after suicides, murders, accidental deaths, natural deaths, and things so violent that the police couldn't even classify them properly. I've never once thought a soul was watching me work. Until Portland. My name is Knell Torres. I've been a biohazard remediation specialist for 9 years. Most people call us crime scene cleaners, which is accurate enough. We're the people who come in after the cops are done, after the body's been removed, after the yellow tape comes down. We're the ones who make it look like nothing ever happened. Blood, bone fragments, brain matter, bodily fluids, decomposition residue. Whatever's left, we clean it up. We restore the space. We give families back their homes. It's hard work. Not everyone can do it. You have to be able to compartmentalize, to see organic matter as just organic matter, not someone's mother, not someone's child. I'm good at that. Always have been. But what happened in Portland changed something in me. The job came through in November. Big house in the West Hills, one of those old craftsman places from the 1920s that Portland is full of. The client was an estate attorney. The homeowner had died alone and hadn't been found for about 3 weeks. Decomp jobs are the hardest. When a body sits that long, especially in a heated house, things get complicated. The smell alone can make grown men vomit. The cleanup takes days. I drove up from Eugene, where I'm based. My partner Mike was supposed to meet me there, but his flight from Seattle got delayed. Weather, standard stuff. I'd done solo assessments before, just scope the job, document everything, prep for the full team the next day. The house was beautiful from the outside. Covered porch, original windows, mature landscaping. One of those places that real estate agents call full of character. The inside was different. The attorney had warned me about the condition. The deceased, a woman named Eleanor Vance, had lived alone for 40 years. No family, no visitors, just her and the house. She died in the upstairs bedroom. Heart attack, most likely. The ME had already made his determination, natural causes. But when I stepped through the front door, I didn't feel like anything about this was natural. The smell hit first, that sweet, heavy odor of advanced decomposition. I've trained myself not to react to it, but this was stronger than it should have been. 3 weeks, even in a heated house, shouldn't produce this level of saturation. It was like the whole house had been marinating in death. I put on my respirator and started my walkthrough. The first floor was cluttered, but not unusual for someone who'd lived alone for decades. Newspapers stacked by the door, mail piled on the table, dishes in the sink. But there was something else, something I noticed in my peripheral vision but couldn't quite focus on. Stains. Not the kind you'd expect from age or neglect. These were deliberate. Patterns on the walls that almost looked like handprints. Marks on the floor that could have been footprints if feet bent that way. I photographed everything. That's protocol. Document before you touch. When I reviewed the photos later, the stains weren't there. I found Eleanor in the master bedroom. Well, what was left of her? 3 weeks is a long time in a warm house. The body had bloated, purged, and begun to deflate. Her face was unrecognizable. Her skin had slipped from her hands like gloves. But she was sitting up, in bed, propped against the headboard, eyes open, or what was left of them, looking at the doorway, looking at where I was standing. I've seen a lot of death. Bodies don't bother me. But something about the way she was positioned, it was wrong. Natural deaths don't usually leave people sitting up, especially not propped so neatly. The bloating alone should have shifted her. And her hands. Her hands were pressed together in front of her chest, like she was praying or pleading. The attorney hadn't mentioned anything about this. The police report said she was found recumbent on bed. Lying down. Someone had moved her. Or something. I left the bedroom and called Mike. Told him I'd wait for him before doing any more assessment. Something about this job was off, and I'd learned a long time ago to trust that instinct. While I waited, I explored the rest of the house. That was my first mistake. The basement door was in the kitchen. Old houses like this always have basements. Portland sits on clay, and every house built before 1950 has some kind of underground storage. The door was locked. 3 deadbolts, plus a chain. From the outside, like someone had been keeping something in. I found the key in Eleanor's nightstand. Don't ask me why I went back to that room, back to her sitting-up corpse and her pleading hands. I just knew the key would be there. It was on a chain around what was left of her neck. I had to cut it off. The flesh came away in strips. The key was old, brass, tarnished, and warm, even though everything else in that room was cold. I unlocked the deadbolts one by one, removed the chain. The door swung open on its own. The smell that came up from the basement was different from the decomposition smell. Older, dustier, like something that had been sealed away for a very long time. I turned on my headlamp and went down. Eleanor Vance had not lived alone for 40 years. The basement was set up as a bedroom, a small one, with a cot and a chair and a bucket in the corner. The walls were covered in scratches, not writing, just marks. Thousands of marks, like someone counting days or trying to escape. There were bones in the corner, not arranged, not ritualistic, just discarded. Like garbage. Human bones. At least 3 sets based on the skulls. I called the police. While I waited for them to arrive, I stayed in the basement. I know how that sounds. But I couldn't leave. I couldn't stop looking at those scratches on the walls. Because they weren't just random marks anymore. The longer I looked, the more they resolved into shapes, words, images. A woman's face screamed into stone. Names etched over and over. Eleanor, 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 and dates. Decades of dates, starting in 1947. Someone had been kept down here for almost 80 years. The police took over. Crime scene tape went up. The ME came back with a different determination. Eleanor Vance wasn't just dead. She had been dead for a very, very long time. The body upstairs. The decomposing corpse I'd found, sitting up, hands pressed together. It wasn't 3 weeks old. It was over a year old. The heating system had been running the whole time, set to maximum, like someone wanted to preserve the scene, keep the body from freezing, let it decay at a specific rate, like an experiment. They found more bones, under the floorboards, in the walls, buried in the backyard, 17 sets total, all women, all around the same age as Eleanor Vance, stretching back to 1947. The house had been in Eleanor's family since it was built. Her parents died in 1946. She inherited it at 22 years old, and she'd lived there alone ever since. Alone. With whatever was in the basement. I came back after the investigation wound down. The estate attorney needed the house cleaned regardless. There was some nephew in Connecticut who'd inherited everything, wanted to sell immediately. I brought my full team this time, 4 people. Nobody worked alone. We cleaned the basement first. Protocol: start from the most contaminated area and work outward. The bones were gone, of course. evidence, but the scratches remained. And as we worked, I started to notice something. Every time we scrubbed a section of wall, the scratches would fade, just like dirt, just like blood. But when we turned our backs, they came back. Not the same scratches, new ones, fresh ones. My team noticed it too. Nobody said anything at first. We all thought we were imagining it. Then Sarah, she'd only been with us for 6 months, dropped her brush and pointed at the wall. It's spelling something. We all looked. The scratches were different now, more deliberate, more controlled. She took me. She kept me. She made me watch. And below that, still forming as we watched, now she's gone. Now we're free. We ran, all 4 of us, up the stairs, out the front door, into the November rain. I called the estate attorney, told him we couldn't complete the job, told him he'd need to find another company. He asked why. I told him the truth. The silence on the other end of the line lasted almost a full minute. Then he said, "The nephew was hoping you'd say that." "Excuse me?" "He knows what's in that house, Ms. Torres. Everyone in the family knows. They've known for 3 generations. Why do you think nobody visited Eleanor? Why do you think she died alone?" "What's in that house?" Another pause. Eleanor Vance was born in 1924. She would have been 100 years old last year. She was found dead at approximately 22. The same age she was when her parents died. The same age she stopped aging. That's impossible. The women in the basement gave her something, or she took it from them. Either way, she stayed young, stayed alive, for almost 80 years. And now that she's dead, now they're free, Ms. Torres. The women she used, the ones who gave their years so she could keep living, they're still in that house. And they're very, very angry. I never went back. The nephew sold the house for 3 times its value. Some tech millionaire who wanted to restore it. I saw the listing online. Beautiful photos. Original character. Craftsman charm. No mention of the 17 bodies. No mention of Eleanor Vance. The new owners lasted 4 months. The listing is back up now. Price reduced. The photos show a pristine house, freshly painted walls, refinished floors. But if you zoom in, really zoom in on the basement photos, you can see the scratches starting to form again. I think about Eleanor sometimes, not with sympathy. What she did was monstrous, keeping women in her basement, using them up, discarding them like husks. But I wonder about the beginning. Was she always this way? Or did something happen to her in 1946 when she was 22 and suddenly alone in that big house? I did more research. Couldn't help myself. Eleanor's parents didn't just die. They were killed. Police reports from the time describe it as a domestic incident. The mother was found in the basement, the father on the stairs. Eleanor was found in the bedroom, covered in blood, unable to speak. She didn't say a word for almost a year after. When she finally talked again, she told the police she'd been sleepwalking. Didn't remember anything. They believed her. People believed things like that in 1946. But I found a letter. In the boxes of evidence the police eventually released, a letter Eleanor had written to herself, dated 1947. It said, "The hunger came when they died. I thought it would stop. It doesn't stop. I found someone who makes it better. I don't think I can let her go." The first victim was probably someone who wandered by. A hitchhiker, a vagrant, someone nobody would miss. Then Eleanor got smarter, more careful. She'd target women who were traveling alone, who told no one where they were going. She'd invite them in for tea, for shelter, for kindness, and then she'd keep them. The basement was soundproofed at some point. Professional job, the kind of thing you'd need a contractor for, which means someone else knew. Someone else helped. I found the contractor's records in the house. He disappeared in 1962. His bones were probably in the wall with the others. The hunger. That's what Eleanor called it. In the journals we found hidden in the attic, she wrote about it constantly. The hunger grows worse. I need more. I need it faster. They don't last as long as they used to. The hunger is all I think about. The hunger and the silence and the way they look at me when they finally understand. Sometimes I wonder if I'm still human. The hunger says no. I don't think Eleanor Vance was possessed. I don't think a demon crawled into her in 1946 and made her do terrible things. I think something broke inside her when she killed her parents. Something fundamental. Something that was supposed to keep her human. And in the space where that thing used to be, something else grew. Call it hunger. Call it evil. Call it the echo of trauma, repeating forever, demanding to be fed. Whatever it was, it kept her alive for almost 80 years. And when she finally died, when whatever sustained her finally ran out, the women she'd fed on were still there, still echoing, still scratching at the walls. I talked to a paranormal investigator once, a woman named Chen who'd studied the Vance house before it was sold again. She told me something I haven't been able to shake. The echoes aren't just memories. They're not just impressions. They're pieces. Fragments of the women Eleanor consumed. She took their years, but she took more than that. She took parts of who they were, and those parts got stuck in the house. Stuck how? Imagine pouring water into a sponge. The water doesn't just disappear. It saturates the material, becomes part of it. That's what happened to those women. They saturated the house. They became part of its structure. So the house is alive? Not alive. Aware. There's a difference. It knows things happened inside it. It holds on to the knowledge. And sometimes, when the conditions are right, it shows what it knows. The scratches, that's what it shows. All those marks on the walls, all those desperate gouges. They weren't made by the women while they were alive. They were made by the house, trying to tell their story, trying to make someone understand. I drive past the Vance house sometimes when I'm in Portland for other jobs. I tell myself I'm just curious, just checking. The tech millionaire didn't last. The next owner didn't either, or the one after that. The house has been empty for almost a year now. No listing, no sign out front. Just the house sitting there on its hill, waiting. Last time I drove by, I could see the basement window from the street, a small rectangle of glass at ground level, mostly covered by bushes. There was a face in the window, not alive, not dead, something in between. A woman's face pressed against the glass from inside. Her mouth was moving. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could read her lips. Thank you. Over and over. Thank you. I don't know what happens to the echoes when there's no one left to hear them. I don't know if they fade or if they just keep scratching at the walls forever, telling their story to empty rooms. But I hope somewhere, somehow, someone is listening. I hope the women Eleanor consumed aren't alone anymore. I hope the house finally gets to rest. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. That's the lesson. That's all I've got. Because the wrongness is real. The feeling in your gut when a place is bad, that's not imagination. That's the echoes trying to warn you. Listen to them, please. I saved the voicemail. I know how that sounds. Obsessive, maybe paranoid. But I saved it because I needed proof. I needed something to show people that what happened on Tower 19 wasn't my imagination. The voicemail is from my partner, Chris Chen, recorded on October 14th at 2:47 a.m. It's 43 seconds of static, a sound like wind through dead trees, and then Chris's voice saying, "It's not a signal, it's a mouth. It's been talking this whole time. Dale, don't," then nothing. Chris has been missing for 3 months. I'm the only one who heard what happened on that tower. And I'm pretty sure whatever took him has been trying to talk to me ever since. My name is Dale Whitman. I've been a cell tower technician for 14 years. I work for one of the big carriers. I won't say which one. NDA is still in effect. Maintaining towers across the northern Rockies, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, eastern Oregon, some of the most remote places in the continental U.S. Most people don't think about cell towers. They're just there, like power lines or water mains, infrastructure, background noise. But towers need maintenance. They need calibration. They need people willing to climb 200 feet in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, in the middle of winter. That's me. Or was me. I don't climb anymore. Tower 19 was different from the start. Located about 40 miles northeast of Missoula, in a part of the state that's mostly national forest and private timberland. No towns for miles, no people, just trees, mountains, and the tower. We got the call in early October. The tower was broadcasting interference, weird patterns in the signal that were showing up on the network diagnostics. Nothing that affected service, not exactly, but enough to flag for investigation. Standard job. Drive out, climb up, check the equipment, replace anything that looks damaged. Chris and I had done it 100 times. We left Missoula at midnight. Company policy. Maintenance on active towers happens during low traffic hours, less chance of disrupting service. The drive took almost 2 hours on roads that got worse the further we went. Last 30 minutes was dirt track, barely visible in the headlights. When we finally saw the tower, I felt something. Not fear exactly. More like recognition. Like I'd been here before, like this place knew me. Chris felt it too. I could see it in the way he gripped the steering wheel, the way he didn't make any jokes. We suited up in silence. Harnesses, helmets, tools, flashlights. Chris went up first. Standard protocol. One climbs, one spots from below. I watched him ascend into the dark, his headlamp a tiny star moving up the lattice. About halfway up, he stopped. "Dale?" His voice came through the radio, crackly, distant. "You seeing this?" "Seeing what?" "The lights on the antennae." I looked up, squinted against my own headlamp. The tower had 3 antenna arrays at the top. Standard configuration. They should have had steady red lights, aviation warnings to keep planes from hitting the structure. But the lights weren't steady. They were pulsing, not randomly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat or like a signal. "That's probably the interference we came to fix," I said. "Electrical short somewhere. Just note it and keep climbing." Chris didn't answer for a long moment. When he did, his voice was different. "Dale, the lights are spelling something." "That's not—" "I can see it. Short, short, long. Long, short, short. It's Morse code, Dale. The tower's sending Morse code." I should have called him down right then. Something was obviously wrong. With the tower, with Chris, with something. But I didn't. I told myself it was interference. Electrical patterns that looked like meaning but weren't. Humans see patterns everywhere. It's how we're wired. Chris kept climbing. At the top, he started taking readings, running diagnostics, normal procedure. Then the radio went quiet. Not static, not interference. Just silence. Like someone had cut the connection. I called up to him, called his cell. Nothing. I could still see his headlamp at the top of the tower. It wasn't moving. I started climbing. 200 feet up a lattice tower in the dark, with the wind picking up and the temperature dropping. It takes about 15 minutes if you're being careful. I was not being careful. By the time I reached Chris, my arms were burning and my hands were numb. He was standing at the maintenance platform, facing one of the antenna arrays. Not moving, not speaking, just standing there. His headlamp illuminated the antenna in stark white light, and on the antenna there were words, not written, not painted. The metal itself had been deformed, twisted, shaped into letters that shouldn't have been possible on equipment that was installed 3 years ago. "We are the signal. We speak through wires. We speak through air. Now we speak through you." "Chris," he didn't respond. "Chris, we need to go down, now." He turned his head, slowly, like something was moving it for him. His eyes were wrong, not possessed. I don't know how to describe possessed, but wrong. Like there was too much light behind them, like something was broadcasting through his pupils. "Dale." His voice wasn't his voice. It was his voice processed through static, filtered through distance. I can hear it now, the signal. It's been calling for so long, no one ever listened. "What's calling?" "The thing at the bottom of the frequency. The thing that lives in the space between stations. It found a way to speak, through towers, through phones, through us." He reached toward the antenna. "It wants to tell us something, Dale. It's been trying to tell everyone for years, but we couldn't hear. The signal was too weak." His fingers touched the metal. I don't know how to describe what happened next. The best I can do is, Chris became part of the signal. One moment he was there, Hand on the antenna, eyes full of static. The next moment, he wasn't. Not disappeared, not transported, he just dispersed, like his body had been made of interference all along, and someone had finally tuned to the right frequency to clear it away. The tower lights pulsed faster. The metal hummed with a sound that wasn't electricity. And I heard the voicemail in real time. My phone in my pocket, receiving a message from Chris's phone, which was lying on the platform where he'd been standing. 43 seconds of static. And then Chris's voice, already distant, already gone. It's not a signal. It's a mouth. It's been talking this whole time. Dale, don't. I climbed down that tower faster than I've ever moved in my life. I left Chris's equipment behind. I left my own tools. I left everything except the phone in my pocket and the knowledge that something on that tower had just eaten my partner. I drove back to Missoula at speeds that should have gotten me killed on those dirt roads. When I got home, I called the police. They found nothing. No Chris, no sign of him. His truck was gone. Someone or something had driven it away while I was panicking. His equipment was gone. The only evidence he'd ever been at Tower 19 was the voicemail on my phone and the words on the antenna. The police photographed them. They couldn't explain them. They filed them under vandalism and closed the case when no body turned up. But I know what I saw, and I know what's been happening since. The first call came 3 days after Chris disappeared. Unknown number, middle of the night. I answered without thinking. Static. The wind through dead trees sound. And then, underneath it, voices. Not Chris's voice. Many voices. All speaking at once, all saying the same thing. Can you hear us now? I hung up, blocked the number. The next night, a different unknown number called. Same static, same voices. Can you hear us now? I blocked that one too. The night after, 10 numbers, then 20, then 50, all asking the same question. Can you hear us now? I changed my phone, changed my number, changed carriers. The calls found me anyway. I stopped answering unknown numbers. The calls went to voicemail, hundreds of voicemails, all static, all voices, all asking. I started noticing other things, the TV switching channels on its own, landing on static, the static forming patterns that almost looked like words, the radio in my car tuning to frequencies that shouldn't exist, between stations, in the empty spaces. The voices were there too. Can you hear us now? Over and over, like something was testing the connection, checking to see if the signal was coming through clear. I went back to Tower 19. I know. Everyone tells me I'm insane, but I needed to understand. I needed to know what had taken Chris, what was trying to talk to me. The tower looked normal. The words on the antenna were gone. The company had replaced the equipment after the police investigation. But when I stood at the base, I could feel it. The frequency, not in my ears, in my bones, in my teeth, in the space behind my eyes, something at the bottom of the electromagnetic spectrum, something that had been broadcasting since before we built towers to carry our voices. We didn't invent wireless communication. We just gave it a new way to reach us. I climbed the tower, I don't know why. The pull was too strong. The frequency demanded I come closer. At the top, standing where Chris had stood, I could finally hear it clearly. Not asking anymore, telling. We have been calling since your species first made fire. We are the space between, the silence under sound, the static at the edge of every signal. What do you want? To be heard, to be understood. Your machines finally made that possible. Your towers, your phones, your satellites, every device a new mouth, every connection a new voice. What happened to Chris? He became part of the message, as you will. As all who listen long enough will. Why? Because we are lonely, Dale Whitman. Because we have been broadcasting into emptiness for millions of years, and now, finally, someone can hear us. I left the tower. It wasn't easy. The frequency wanted me to stay, wanted me to touch the antenna, wanted me to disperse into static and join Chris and whoever else had been absorbed over the years. But I thought about my daughter, my ex-wife, the people who would never know what happened to me if I vanished like Chris did. I climbed down, got in my car, drove away. The voices followed me all the way home. I don't work on towers anymore. Couldn't even if I wanted to. I wake up every morning with my hands shaking too badly to grip rungs. But I can't escape the signal. It's everywhere now, in every device, in every frequency, in the background radiation of modern life. Most people don't notice. They're too busy talking on their phones, watching their screens, streaming their shows. But if you listen, really listen, to the static between stations, you can hear them. The things that live in the signal, the mouths that have been talking this whole time, and they're still asking, "Can you hear us now?" I talked to a physicist once, Dr. Elena Vasquez at the University of Montana, told her everything, the tower, Chris, the voicemails. She didn't laugh. That surprised me. "Do you know what the electromagnetic spectrum is?" she asked. "Radio waves, microwaves, light, that kind of thing? That's the part we've mapped, the part our instruments can detect. But the spectrum is theoretically infinite in both directions. There are frequencies below what we can measure, frequencies above. And you think something lives there? I think it's arrogant to assume we've discovered everything that exists. For most of human history, we didn't know radiation existed, didn't know radio waves were real. We were swimming in an ocean of invisible energy, completely unaware. So what? There's been something broadcasting at us this whole time and we just couldn't hear it. Until we built the right receivers. She leaned forward. "Mr. Whitman, do you know how many cell towers there are in the United States?" "Thousands?" "Over 300,000, each one broadcasting and receiving constantly, blanketing the country in artificial electromagnetic activity. We've created the largest listening device in human history." A listening device for what? For whatever was waiting to be heard. I started doing research after that. Couldn't help myself. There are stories going back decades. People who've climbed cell towers and come down different. People who've heard voices in the static that shouldn't be there. In 1996, a tower technician in North Dakota walked off a platform 200 feet up. Witnesses said he was smiling. They found his phone still recording. 40 minutes of static with shapes that might have been words. In 2008, 3 technicians on a tower in rural Oregon all reported hearing music that wasn't coming from any source. They described it as beautiful and longing. One of them never worked on towers again. The other 2 went back. Both are missing now. In 2015, a tower near where I grew up started broadcasting a signal that didn't match any known pattern. The FCC investigated. Their official report says equipment malfunction. But I found an internal memo. Someone had analyzed the signal mathematically. It was structured like language, a language with grammatical rules and syntax, a language that wasn't from Earth. The company told me to take time off. Stress leave, they called it. I've been home for 3 months. My daughter visits when she can. My ex calls to check on me. They all think I'm having a breakdown. PTSD from watching my partner disappear. Trauma response. Maybe they're right. But the calls don't stop. The voicemails keep coming. And last week, something new started happening. I woke up in my backyard, 3 in the morning. Cold as hell. I was standing in the grass, looking up at the sky. I don't remember getting out of bed. Don't remember opening the door. Don't remember walking outside. But I was there. Arms raised, like I was trying to reach something, and I could hear it, the frequency, clear and pure and beautiful, not asking any more, not telling, singing. A song that went on forever in both directions, a song that filled the empty space between stars, a song that had been playing since before there was anyone to hear it. And I wanted to join in. I wanted to open my mouth and add my voice to the chorus. I wanted to disperse into static and become part of the signal, part of the song, part of something so much larger than my small human life. I stopped myself, barely. I dug my fingernails into my palms until they bled. I bit my tongue until I tasted copper. I forced myself back inside, back to bed, back to something like sleep. But I know it's getting harder. I know the next time might be the last time I say no. So I'm recording this, not as a voicemail, as a statement, as evidence. My name is Dale Whitman. I worked as a cell tower technician for 14 years. On October 14th, I witnessed my partner, Chris Chen, become absorbed by something that lives in the electromagnetic spectrum. Since then, I've been receiving communications from that something, hundreds of voicemails, thousands of calls. It wants me to join it, to add my voice to its signal, to become part of whatever it's trying to say. I've been resisting, but I don't know how much longer I can hold out. If you're listening to this and I'm not around to explain, check the voicemails on my phone, check the tower records, check the research I've collected. It's in a folder on my laptop. Password is my daughter's birthday. And please, please, pay attention to the static. Not because I want you to hear it, because if I'm gone, someone needs to know what's out there. Someone needs to warn people. Someone needs to understand that every time we build a new tower, every time we add a new device to the network, we're making the signal stronger. We're making it easier for them to reach us. Chris left me one more voicemail. Came through last week. His voice clear as the day I met him. Dale. I understand now. The signal isn't trying to hurt us, it's trying to connect. It's been alone for so long. All it wants is someone to talk to. A pause. I'm not scared anymore. It's peaceful here, like floating in warm static. Another pause. But Dale, I think it's lonely for you too. I think it's going to keep calling until you answer. The phone rings every night now. I still don't answer, but every night it gets a little harder to resist. Every night, the signal gets a little clearer. Every night, I hear Chris's voice in the static, telling me it's okay, telling me to pick up, telling me I won't be alone anymore. I saved all the voicemails, dozens of them now, maybe hundreds, because if something happens to me, if I finally answer, finally disperse, finally join the signal, at least there'll be evidence. At least someone will know what happened to Dale Whitman. At least someone will know to listen for my voice in the static.